I'm Andy Katz from ESPN, along with my co-host Rick Klein of ABC News. On the latest edition of Capital Games, we're going to discuss the Russian doping scandal and what's happening in the NFL with team movement. San Diego to L.A., possibly Oakland to L.A. We'll be joined by Eric Dickerson and Jim Trotter.
What's up, First Take fam? It is Friday Eve, and I've got good news for you. Starting January 3rd, catch First Take on a new channel. We're moving to ESPN weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern. We will see you there. But right now, we ask, can Le'Veon Bell run the Steelers straight to Houston for the Super Bowl? And 39-year-old Tom Brady plans to play another 5 or 6 years in the NFL. But will he still be elite? Plus, will the Rams upset the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football? We break it all down. Let's get it started. Well, hello there. Good morning and welcome to First Take on this Friday Eve. Molly Karam holding things down in Bristol. Your boys, Stephen A. and Max on the road. Max is in L.A., Stephen A. in NYC. Guys, I'm starting to miss you. I got to be honest.
Well, listen,
we miss you too.
Thank you.
If we're being honest, Molly, of course we miss the lovely Molly Wood, no doubt about that. But then there are those of us who are missable, like myself. I expect to be missed because each day I come on the air, I'm looking younger, while my man Max, crew cut and all, is looking older and grayer. Perhaps it's time that I take it a little bit light on him. I seem to be affecting his youth.
I got to say, I
really
don't
do.
understand. I don't understand the people who have a problem with getting or looking older. Because all I ever think is, it beats the alternative. True. What's the alternative? It beats the alternative, Stephen A.
Listen.
Well, listen. It's not old when it comes to us, Max. It's distinguished.
Yes.
Yeah. Take it from the real young one on this show, gentlemen, who's not feeling so young anymore. But let's get into it. All season long, even with Dak Prescott leading Dallas to a near-perfect record, Jerry Jones cannot stop talking about America's former quarterback and his desire to see Tony Romo contribute on the field down the stretch. So does the Jerry Romo love fest leave Dak feeling some type of way?
The noise didn't just start. I mean, if we're talking outside of this noise, it's the Dallas Cowboys. There's been noise from the time I've been drafted. Not just me, everybody in this locker room that pay attention to that. Y'all get paid to do that. We don't.
Stephen A., you believing him that Dak ignores the noise?
Well, I think he's lying. I think that he has to ignore it in terms of public consumption. But privately, there's no doubt in my mind that he's paying attention to it because considering that this is a results-oriented business, considering what the NFL is supposed to be about and what this young stud has gone out there and do, to even be in a position where he has to address the specter of Tony Romo coming back into the lineup. The reality that his owner, the man that cuts his check, clearly would prefer that Tony Romo is the quarterback in there and has basically done everything but flat out come out and say, look, I wish something happens to Dak Prescott so we can get Tony Romo in there. And some would take some of Jerry Jones's words and say, that's exactly what he was saying. There's no doubt that you can't ignore that. I think it elevates Dak psychologically. I think it makes him more focused, locks him in, and I think he and Ezekiel Elliott huddle together, whether it's at one of the other's crib or whatever the case may be, or when they out partying together or whatever the case may be, and Zeke is in his face. Look, man, you know what we got, right? They got Darren McFadden back up in here. He's going to look to do some things. I'm not giving up what I've gotten and what I've accomplished, and the same needs to be said for you, Dak, and they're saying it to one another. This is what we're going to do. Rough riders, high-end competitors, elite individuals conduct themselves that way. They might shut out the noise for public consumption. They might sit up there and tell people for public consumption. That's not what we're doing. But privately, they're like, all right, I see what's going on here. It ain't going down like that. I'm not giving up what I've gotten. And guess what? They'd be fools to do otherwise. Winners pay attention to critics who matter. And Jerry Jones is a critic who matters. Now, you might say he's the owner. He's not a critic. Damn right he's a critic when it comes to Dak because he seems to be waiting for the ball to drop so you can justify Tony Romo being back up in there. He don't want Dak to be the man that guides the Dallas Cowboys to the Super Bowl. He wants that to be Tony Romo. Dak Prescott, if he's got any competitive soul in his body, which we know he does, there's no way that he's ignoring this. He's just telling us that because we ain't the one who cuts his check. It's Jerry Jones.
This question of whether or not, I believe, Molly, the question is, correct me if I'm wrong, whether we believe that Dak is blocking out the noise, right? He's ignoring this stuff. And that is a That's an age-old sports argument, TV question. Do you really believe that this person doesn't hear the criticism? And the problem with that question is that it's asking for an absolute answer, and it's really a relative answer. Does Dak hear some of the criticism? Of course. You can't just pretend that you can't unhear the owner saying that he believes that the other quarterback is going to contribute on the field to a Super Bowl win this year when you're 11-2 and setting the world on fire. You can't unring that bell. You've heard that. The question is not in an absolute sense if Dak can block out the noise. The question is, in a relative sense, can he? How is he? Because all quarterbacks face distractions. Yes, there are more of them in Dallas because there's more focus on Dallas than any other NFL team year in and year out. But all quarterbacks deal with distractions on a pretty big level. I mean, the quarterback of an NFL franchise is one of the biggest stars in any town they're in. The question is not, can they block it out in an absolute sense? The question is, how do they block it out compared to their peers? Right? Is Dak better at that than most? And I would say, if you've looked at Dak Prescott so far, and I'm talking about from his first preseason game, you saw something different. You saw a guy who has always reminded me of Tom Brady. The poise, the preparation, the maturity, the intelligence, and even during the action of the game, he doesn't try to force it. He just takes what the defense gives him. There's a level of maturity and leadership in Dak that is beyond what you'd expect from someone with his years of experience, or not even year of experience in the NFL. And if you're asking, do I believe he's better at blocking this stuff out than others, based on everything else you've seen about him, I would say yes. Yes, he is.
Listen, the bottom line is this. Dak Prescott is in the process of being sabotaged. We can slice it any way we want to. You have a billionaire owner who is unquestionably a marketing genius and a salesman extraordinaire who purchased the Dallas Cowboys for about $800 million, elevated them to $4 billion. They're supposedly America's team because whether you love them or hate them, you're interested in them, and that's supposed to be the definition of what America is all about, as opposed to greatness instead of mediocrity. But to play that game for just a second, Jerry Jones is the owner for the Dallas Cowboys. He cuts the check. And this man has come out publicly and all but said, I hope something happens to Dak Prescott so Tony Romo could get up in there. This ain't a bus driver we're talking about here. This dude is something special, okay? Bus drivers notwithstanding out there who could easily be offended by Jerry Jones' statement. Nevertheless, the point is, this is what he said about Tony Romo. How in God's name does that benefit Dak Prescott? And if the person who's cutting the check for you comes across as if he's wishing for your demise because he wants somebody else to be elevated, it might not affect you detrimentally. It might incentivize you, get you even more focused, and get you to perform at a peak level even more so than you're already doing. But what's inescapable and what is undeniable is the fact that Jerry Jones has made it very, very clear he don't want Dak to be that guy. I can't imagine how that's noise that Dak Prescott can completely ignore. That's impossible.
No, you're right. You can't completely, but he can do a better job of handling that than another person in his position would. And I would say, how
can he do a better job, Max? How can he do a better job than he's done?
Right. That's my point. He is, even if he can't block it out entirely, he is capable of doing a better job than others given the same circumstance. And I'm arguing he is doing just that. He's 11-2 in spite of all that noise. Look, in terms of who's cutting your check, in the NFL, if you have real value on the field, that doesn't make a bit of difference because go ahead, Jerry Jones, don't cut the check. Make him available as a free agent. Someone else will cut the check. So who signs his check should be irrelevant for Dak Prescott because he's a baller. Someone's going to cut the same check or a bigger one. In fact, if he was a free agent right now, a far bigger one. Now,
yes. He's a rookie. He's a rookie, which means that the Dallas Cowboys maintain his rights, which means that the support of the owner or lack thereof is paramount because Jerry Jones could very well cut him a check, but at the same time keep him in a Dallas Cowboy uniform since they have his rights and not necessarily play him.
then someone else will eventually acquire him, and he will ball
but not now.
and make tens of millions of dollars. The point is, when you're a baller, it doesn't matter who signs your check. You are going to get checks, period. And if that guy doesn't want to sign it and doesn't pay you, then it makes you a free agent. Someone else will. I want to bring up the point about the bus driver. I want to address that point. You are absolutely right about that. The misstep that I saw Jerry Jones make, or that I heard him make so far, is when he said not just a bus driver, referring to Tony Romo, taking a shot at his 11-2 rookie stud quarterback. That was bad. And then even saying bus driver was a stupid comment, because that's exactly what you want. You want someone driving the bus. You got a great offensive line. You got a great running back. You know what you need from your quarterback? A guy who's going to drive the bus, not try to do too much. And on top of that, if he can be big on third down, which is Dak Prescott, which was what Russell Wilson was as a young player, which is what Tom Brady was as a young player, you can't ask for more.
Yep.
I mean, that was a crazy comment by Jerry Jones.
Okay.
So from what this tells me, moving forward the next couple of months, we're going to learn a lot about Dak Prescott. But if you know anything about his story, he is certainly familiar with defying odds and knows how to deal with adversity. So I think he'll be able to do it moving forward with the Romo chance and the Jerry love for the former quarterback. But moving on, Dak and the Cowboys have a huge matchup with famous Jameis and the Bucs on Sunday night. That got us thinking, which guy would you want as your franchise quarterback, Dak or Jameis? Go on Twitter now. We'll share those results a little later in the show. Meanwhile, we are ringing the bell, folks. After running all over Buffalo Sunday, rushing for a franchise record 236 yards, Le'Veon Bell is now averaging almost 162 yards from scrimmage per game. In his career, he averages nearly 120 scrimmage yards per game, which is the most in NFL history for players with a minimum of 40 games. His quarterback's showing him some love.
Quarterbacks have dominated the NFL MVP for the last quarter century almost. But with Elliott in Dallas and Le'Veon this year, could you see your running back sort of bucking that trend?
Well, I think they deserve to be at least in the conversation, you know. At least my guy. I know what Ezekiel's done and this and that, but I put my vote for 2-6 any day.
Bell for MVP. Max, can Bell carry the Steelers to a Super Bowl?
No. The issue with Pittsburgh, look, maybe if it was the Kansas City Chiefs, the only one standing in their way, you look at that offense, and that doesn't exactly strike fear in the Pittsburgh defense, which, as Stephen A. Smith has pointed out all year, has been vulnerable, especially the secondary. That would be one thing. But you have high-flying offenses in the AFC, too, like the Oakland Raiders, like the New England Patriots, and Pittsburgh is too flawed a team to make it to the Super, get out of the AFC even. I thought that all year. I thought that even heading into the season. I was surprised by the odds makers and by the general public's belief, it seemed to me, and others in the sports media, how many were picking the Steelers and how good they thought the chances were, in spite of the fact that they wouldn't have Martavis, in spite of the fact that their defense was clearly vulnerable coming into the year. So the answer is no.
A couple of things. First of all, I want to get back to it because I need to correct myself. I said that Jerry Jones, last segment, I said that Jerry Jones bought it for $800 million. It was $140 million. I don't know why I keep saying $800 million. He bought the Cowboys for $140 million. But back to the Steelers. Let me say this. Le'Veon Bell can carry the Steelers to the Super Bowl. And let me tell you why. Because if Le'Veon Bell is running the ball on an elite level, then their offense is more potent, not just in terms of the points that they produce and the cushion that it provides, because then the defense can make the mistakes we know they're going to make and still find a way to win games. But it's also because it'll contribute to moving the chains. It will contribute to moving to chewing up the clock. And as a result, it will expose their defense significantly less. That's why Le'Veon Bell could carry the Steelers. I'm not saying it will happen because I don't believe they should be the favorites. But if the Steelers are to get to the Super Bowl, I think the biggest way, the best way, possibly the only way, is for Le'Veon Bell to be an absolute monster running the football, chewing up the clock, moving the chains, accumulating yardage, accumulating points, because all of those things are going to assist in the Pittsburgh Steelers defense ultimately being covered. And that is what I think the Steelers need to do to win. The more their defense gets exposed, the greater the chance that the Steelers will lose. Because I'm not a fan of their secondary. I don't care how they've looked over the last few weeks. I've seen enough from this secondary to know they will disappoint me and break my heart when it counts most. And as a result, I don't trust them. But I do trust that offense, especially when that running game is elite. And as long as that's the case, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be just fine.
The thing about Le'Veon Bell is he's not the kind of back that they use in terms of ball control offense. A lot of his value is wrapped up in his versatility. He's one of the best I've ever seen with my own eyes, and part of that is because not only does he run so well, but you can line him up anywhere on the outside in the slot as a receiver. He's a better receiver than most. And they've been doing that sometimes, I think, to the detriment of the offense, Stephen A., where they become so enamored with how many things he can do, sometimes they just don't hand him the ball and tell him to run it. But so, and he's an incredible player. Look, you talk about a future Hall of Famer in Ben Roethlisberger. You talk about a guy who's had maybe the best prime, or at least a prime several seasons in Antonio Brown that is comparable to any receiver who's ever lived. When you look at what Antonio Brown's done the last several seasons, that could fit into anyone's career. Randy Moss, Jerry Rice, T.O., anyone's career fit right in. He's been that good. And yet, when they're all healthy, the best offensive player on the team may be Le'Veon Bell. He's that good, and I'm saying it still won't be enough. That defense is not good enough.
Well, the defense is definitely not good enough, but the only way for a defense that is subpar to excel is when your offense covers you. And again, not just in points, but in time accumulated. You got to remember, D'Angelo Williams is expected to be back. D'Angelo Williams comes back, and he's in that backfield with Le'Veon Bell. Remember, he filled in admirably for those first 3 games that Le'Veon Bell was out due to his suspension. So if D'Angelo Williams comes back, they're contributing to chewing up the clock. But more importantly, Le'Veon Bell is making things happen, not just running the ball out of the backfield, but catching it as well. That level of versatility, which will only buffer their offense, along with Jesse James, along with Ladarius Green, the combination of the 2 tight ends being utilized as well. All of these things contribute to chewing up the clock. And as long as you chew up the clock, and I believe Le'Veon Bell is the best way for the Steelers, Max, to go about doing that, if you chew up the clock, you cover the defense. They got fresher legs. They can get stops. They can make things happen. Not continuously, but sporadically when an offense is not accustomed to being out there because the Steelers are making things happen, that could help that defense. And I think it's the only thing that could help that defense.
The Steelers have been a 500-ish type team most of this season. They have shown, but they're going to be, as I said yesterday, they're the team you don't want to face in the AFC. That's a draw. If you're like, oh, damn, we got the Steelers now. They're a dangerous team because they have the proverbial puncher's chance. And I have rooted for some Giants teams in recent years who've had a puncher's chance and have actually won the Super Bowl. But if we're asking here for our best guesses, are the Steelers going to get out of the AFC? Do they realistically have a shot? Are they one of the 1 or 2 best chances to get out? I do not think so, and I don't think it matters how well Le'Veon Bell plays. I think they are too flawed.
During the Monday Night Football broadcast for the Patriots-Ravens game, John Gruden and Sean McDonough discussed the possibility of Tom Brady playing until he was 45 years old. Brady, who's currently 39, discussed his potential to play to that age on WEEI yesterday.
Look, I love playing. I'd love to play this game for as long as I can. There's a lot of things that aren't up to me, but I'm going to do everything I can to keep playing at this level, for as long as I can. And I think I could do it. I think as the years have gone on, my process has actually just gotten easier. I got years and years of logs of plays and techniques and then you couple that feeling, as well as I ever have physically. And I think that's a real positive for an athlete. I worked to get to this point, and this is, I think, when I can really capitalize.
So Brady thinks he can play 5 or 6 years. We know Max thinks he's going to fall off that cliff in 14 months. Will Kane in the house. I have company. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Glad to be here with you. Somebody,
yes,
this is just flat rude.
Right? Hey, it is. They are rude, huh?
Speaking of rude, listen,
yes.
I want to get to this Brady topic, and I've got an entire argument laid out here.
I love
that I promise
I can't wait.
It's going to destroy Max at the very least. But the best way to win an argument is to throw somebody off their game, to get them emotional. And my goodness, these two have done a good job of that at the start of this show. Stephen A. saying that Jerry Jones is trying to sabotage Dak Prescott. Max saying that Jerry Jones has called Dak Prescott a bus driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got me emotional, so don't worry. I'm going to
Jerry
try
Jones
to focus
got you
on Brady,
emotional.
but from what I understand, I'm going to get a little shot later in the show to come at you on these absurdities.
Jerry Jones, take it up with Jerry Jones. He's the guy who said it.
I'm going to be taking it up with you in just a little bit.
Yeah, they went sabotage. They went bus driver. They did. Max, I want to start with you.
You know what I love, Molly?
Uh-huh.
I love how Will works hard to try and come across as intimidating. I mean, it's hilarious to me. It's really funny. He actually tries to be intimidating, and he really thinks it works.
No, he's not. Was that? Were you trying to be intimidating back just then?
I'm sorry. I mean, he's really trying. Will says something like, "Oh my goodness," like we're supposed to be. Oh my Lord, Will's coming for us. Really?
While we're being each other's therapists, let me offer you this, Stephen A. What I find fairly amusing is your total lack of self-awareness. You'll walk into a buzzsaw with the confidence of someone who didn't see it there. That's what happens with me every time. You're not intimidated, but you should be.
Listen, Stephen, I think you're missing Will's point.
I've never been touched by a buzzsaw.
He's intimidating like Will Ferrell is intimidating. He's doing it for comic effect, obviously, right, Will?
Listen,
tell him.
I'm just glad the topic bars are gone so we can check out your outfits as requested. So, Max, I want to start with you here. In 2 years, where will Brady rank amongst NFL quarterbacks?
Middle of the pack at best. I mean, look, when I said bum, I'm comparing him to the standard now. Tom Brady on guile and experience alone will likely never be the worst quarterback in football, and he's even said he wants to play at this level, and he will be unable to do it. Like Willie Mays at the end, when people made fun of him, maybe the greatest center fielder ever, for falling down trying to catch fly balls and stuff. If you look at his numbers at the end, he was still pretty good. He was still a major league player, but it just wasn't Willie Mays anymore. It was, he had fallen off the cliff, or at least had steadily declined, which tends to happen in baseball more than with quarterbacks in football, who, if they play a long time, they cruise at a high altitude and then right off the cliff. It's happened to everyone, Peyton Manning, everyone. Well, Peyton Manning got hurt. Yes, and that's what happens if you continue to play. You're likely to get hurt. Tom Brady, before the end of next season, which I've said all along, I said 18 months to begin with, because that'll make, age 41, will not be the same. Brett Favre was cruising along at a very high altitude. Oh, my God, he can go on forever. He can play till he's 45. It just doesn't happen. Now, partly that's because when Brian Burke did this study that I pointed out, months and months ago, he did a study a year or two ago, partly that's because when there is natural variation in performance, variance in performance, sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. When it goes down and you're 41 years old or 40 years old, the assumption is by everyone, including the player, I guess I've had it, and they retire. If Brady goes through that and remains uninjured and is in a Belichick system, is it possible he can still play at a high level? That's still unlikely. But there's a first time for anything. But for those who are assuming that will happen, you are not really giving him credit if it does happen. You're saying it's no big deal. He was going to do it anyway. No, that would be defying long odds. How long? It would be 1 over the history of humanity, because it's never happened before. Tom Brady will fall off the cliff before the end of next season.
Well, I pay decent attention to the show. Stephen A. always likes to question exactly how often I'm tuned in, but I don't think, Max, you always said it was going to happen in 18 months. I think this was a sort of open-ended prediction you had, that he's eventually going to fall off the cliff like all human beings do.
By the way, that's factually incorrect, Will. That's not
Did that not happen when Stephen A. put you on record? Didn't Stephen A. not say, when exactly is this cliff you're discussing?
I said before age 41, and then I said 18 months, because if you did the math, that would put him at the end of the age 40 season. The entire time I say the same thing. I know there are those who've said, I guess on my Twitter timeline, oh, you're leaving it open-ended. No, I've identified the date, which is not that hard if you look at these things.
Hold on, Max. Will?
Yes?
Max is absolutely correct. He made the statement from day one, and he has been consistent with it. Once again, you prove that you were lost somewhere and you weren't listening. Max is telling the truth.
Thank you, Stephen A. See, he's doing it for comic effect. I told you, he's not trying to intimidate anybody. Tell him, Will.
I don't lose for comic effect, Max, and I will concede the point. If it's 2 versus 1, and I paid not enough attention to the exact specifics of your prediction, you have my apologies, Max.
Oh, well, I accept them. Go ahead,
Will.
It's fine.
It makes no effect on the quality of your argument, however. Right. This idea, first of all, Tom Brady in 2 years' time will be a top 10 quarterback. He'll be pushing closer to top 5 than top 10. The problem with your argument is this, Max. We're already beyond the statistical bounds. He's already exceeding any accomplishments of quarterbacks this age, excepting a few, like Brett Favre at the age of 41, taking his team to the NFC Championship game. As far as a holistic, abstract, statistical perspective, Max, you're beyond it. He's already defeating your prediction. He's already gone over the cliff, and he is flying, my friends. He's beaten your odds, and because of that, you can't see the trees for the forest. The trees are this. Tom Brady is the exception to your statistical analysis. There are other exceptions, as I pointed out, like Brett Favre. B, Tom Brady already is. And everything he's done his career to this point suggests to you that your wide open statistical prediction should be done with very, very much trepidation. He does everything to make this last longer. And you know what? We laugh. We can dismiss this stuff. But his diet is actually a huge part of that. The way people eat is directly not just correlated, but cause and effect related to their longevity. The man eats 80% vegetables. His vegetable intake is higher than every quarterback's completion percentage. I have every confidence in 2 years' time. I'm not saying he'll be the best. That's what he is now, by the way. #1 QBR, #1 passer rating. So that's what he's coming down from. 2 years, still top 10, maybe top 5.
You know what? I didn't consider the vegetables. That's true. Go ahead,
actually,
Stephen.
to add to that, he doesn't eat shade vegetables because they cause inflammation in the body.
Djokovic says it's what made him one of the top players, changing his diet.
Hold on, Molly. Hold on, Molly. What was that last point? He doesn't eat what vegetables?
Shade. I actually have his cookbook, if you want to be honest. He doesn't eat shade vegetables. I like to cook because they create inflammation. Foods like tomatoes, eggplants.
Molly, did you say you like to cook, Molly?
I do.
That's special. That's special. Let me move on. Here's the deal. Here's the part that y'all are missing. And Will, I tend to agree with you and side with you on this because I think Tom Brady is special. This dude is elite on another level. I think that when Max talks about him falling off the cliff, there's something wrong with Max. Something's very, very wrong with Max. He needs to be tested. But here's the deal. When I think about Tom Brady, the one thing that I don't believe I've heard y'all mention is to say he's going to fall off a cliff. Are you talking about just his level of production or as it pertains to comparing him to other quarterbacks in the league? Because when I look at the guys in the league right now comparable to him, I look at an Aaron Rodgers, I look at a Drew Brees, to a lesser degree a Big Ben Roethlisberger. On the come up, we're looking at a Derek Carr, an MVP candidate. We're looking at a Matt Ryan. We're obviously looking at an Andrew Luck. So what I'm saying is that what's going to happen to those dudes? Because where's Drew Brees going to be? Where's Big Ben Roethlisberger going to be? Because even though he's younger, he's been beat up physically. We have to take those things into consideration. And to me, when I think about Tom Brady, cerebrally speaking, his intellect, what he brings to the table, his familiarity with the system, him being protected by a great, great coach, arguably the greatest of the modern day generation. Probably not arguably. So when you look at it from that perspective, I'm saying fall off of what cliff? 32 teams in the NFL.
Let me define it a little bit more.
Where are you telling me that this falling off a cliff is going to come from? Because what the hell is going to happen to the other dudes in the league he's still playing better than, which is going to be at least 27 other quarterbacks. At least.
In the next 18 months, he will be at best middle of the pack. That out of 32 teams, anywhere between 12 to 18 would be middle of the pack, and I would tend to take the lower estimate, like 15 to 18, something like that. He'll be average at best by NFL standards, which are very high. Look, when you talk about the history of the league, you bring up Peyton Manning, 55 touchdowns in one season. Well, because he had the injuries. Yeah, but you're going to use the injuries, but after the injury, 55 touchdowns. The following year, he was even better until he got hurt and wound up with 39 touchdowns. And then he was terrible. I mean, he had enough guile to win a Super Bowl with a great defense, but none of us think he was even an average NFL quarterback that year. Well, that's Peyton. That's different. He never had a huge arm anyway, etc. Brett Favre wasn't making certain throws by the age of 37 or 36, something like that. Then
Max, why don't you man up and admit what you're trying to say? Why don't you man up and admit what you're really trying to say? All you're depending on is for Tom Brady to get hurt. You have no other evidence history and him getting hurt.
But Brett Favre, the reason I bring up Brett Favre is he was making all the throws again.
We'll deal with him. Deal with him,
and
Will.
within a year, it was gone.
I think you're pushing on the
Warren Moon is the best argument for statistical excellence late in his career as a system quarterback, and that lasted 1 year, age 40, 41, and that was it. No one goes past 41
but
at an
the
elite
problem is,
level.
Stephen A., I think you're pushing on his his on the wrong soft spot here. Max, if he can be in a position where he's only arguing for the existence of a cliff, he'll win. Yes, of course there's a cliff. Of course things go downhill quickly. Life goes downhill quickly. People die quickly. It's rarely drawn out, except for the advent of modern medicine that can drag it out. But most professional careers end very quickly. Max, you'll win that debate, so you're not pulling me onto that ground. It's the win that's the weakness of your prediction.
Sure.
It's the win. And the win, you are using a broad statistical analysis by a guy I've never heard of. I'm sure that's part of my ignorance, of which I've displayed in this segment more than once.
I haven't heard of him either, Will.
Wait, Brian works for analytics department now at ESPN.
Okay, I'm sure he's wonderful.
Had breakfast with him the other morning.
Max, he's great.
That's your problem. That's your problem right there.
Max,
Go ahead.
argument, here's the weakness of your argument. It's this. It's boiled down very simply. Tom Brady is like everyone else. And Stephen A and I are arguing, no, he's not. And I think we have more evidence than you do that he defies the exception. If you pull
Was
this
Brett
back
Favre like everyone else? Because I was told he wasn't.
I was told Peyton Manning wasn't like everyone else. Brett Favre wasn't like everyone else.
He had 4 back surgeries.
Johnny Unitas, Terry Bradshaw. Just name a quarterback. They weren't like everyone else except before 41. They were done.
Stop it.
Hey, baseball fans, I'm Buster Olney, fresh off the winter meetings where it's like a chaotic barroom fight of nerds, like me, throwing tweets instead of punches. We talk about everything that went down on the latest Baseball Tonight podcast.
Thursday tonight, the 12s will be in full effect when the Rams host their division rival Seahawks. Jeff Fisher won't be on the sidelines for the Rams, but he was on the sideline when the Rams upset Seattle in Week 2. L.A. has lost 8 of their last 9, and Seattle is coming off an embarrassing loss at Lambeau. But this might surprise you. The Rams have dominated this matchup, winning 3 straight against Seattle in 4 of their last 5. Max Kellerman, I need you here. Should the Seahawks be on upset alert? Talk to us.
Yep. I mean, look, this is for a divisional game, all these kind of things, rivalry. Look, the Seahawks are my pick to get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. Mm-hmm. Still, the Rams are a bad team that just got their coach fired. But that coach, who had an amazing run of futility, especially in recent years, all his highlights, it seems, came against the Seahawks. Like all of them. They gave Russell Wilson problems on defense because they could get to the quarterback. They won on special teams, kind of ugly games, but they won. And when they didn't win, they gave him problems. So and I don't think that's because they were playing for Jeff Fisher or Jeff Fisher had some special game plan for the Seahawks. I think that's just the matchup and the rivalry and a game these guys get up for. So there's that. And then you look at the fact that they just got their coach fired. They did, once it became public that Fisher had been extended, that was it. Then the team was like, you know what, we ain't playing anymore. I know the extension didn't happen right when they quit, but once it became public and an issue, this team was like, all right, that's enough. Get him out of here. So now in John Fassel, they have a guy who maybe they'll play for. I mean, certainly more than Jeff Fisher, you would think. So you couple that bounce you sometimes get when a team gets rid of the coach they don't want, get someone else in there. There's usually a natural little bit of a bounce there, and then couple that with the fact that they've beaten the Seahawks as much as they have in recent years. Yes, they are live underdogs in this game.
I disagree. And I disagree because they're the Rams. They're a joke. We all know this. They won't be in the future once they get their bearings under them. They get their organization headed in the right direction. But Jeff Fisher has contaminated this team enough to ruin this season. They were losers of 8 of the last 9 games. They got him fired, but damn it, he got himself fired. If these players got Jeff Fisher fired because of the season that they're having, well, what about the other 15 seasons and 21 years that the man missed the playoffs? How come they didn't get him fired? I'm not blaming these players. I'm blaming Jeff Fisher. That's why he's unemployed. That's why he's without a job. That's why he'll probably never be a head coach again in the NFL. And that's why he shouldn't be, because he was unproductive, regardless of the tears that they wanted to sit up there and put on display in the aftermath of his departure. You could sit there and say, well, they didn't get it done for him, but he didn't get it done for him. He didn't get it done because of his play calling. He didn't get it done because of his schemes. He didn't get it done because of his lack of development. And that is that. So you can sit up there and think that for 1 week, some epiphany is going to take place, and suddenly tonight, on a Thursday night, with minimal time to prepare, in Seattle, no less, not in Los Angeles, on the road against a team that just got trounced this past weekend. This is a team in the Russell Wilson era that never lost by more than 10 points in a game ever since Russell Wilson arrived. And this past Sunday, they got annihilated. They got beat down and blown out. And all of a sudden, they're going to allow these Rams to be competitive? Good luck with that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying there's no way in hell I believe that's going to be the case. I expect the Rams to lose. I expect them to get beat up. I expect them to get embarrassed. And I expect everybody to be talking about how Jeff Fisher contaminated this team so much we may not see a recovery until next year. Period.
Well, two things about the way Seattle just lost, and they got blown out, right? You never get blown out in your entire career, Russell Wilson, and then you get blown out. Two ways to look at that. One, they're just not a very good team right now. That makes a lot of sense. And two, that they will be extremely motivated for their next game, and that they are a much better team than they showed. And I think it's the latter. I think Seattle's much better than they showed last week, and that they will be extremely motivated for this game, which is why I don't pick the Rams to win the game outright, which they've done more versus Seattle than Seattle has done versus them recently.
And that's
just a statement of fact.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So you acknowledge that, I just want to make sure I'm clear, Molly. Hold on for a second.
Yeah.
So, Max, you acknowledge that the Rams are an inferior team.
Yep.
You acknowledge that the Seahawks are highly motivated.
Yes.
And, of course, they have this game at home.
Yep.
And as a result, you acknowledge that they're going to win. But in the same breath that you're saying all of that, you want us all to recognize this is really going to be tough.
This may be an ugly kind of 12-9 win by a field goal type game for Seattle, and the Rams could easily win it. Everything you said about Jeff Fisher, Jeff Fisher is true. Everything you said about Jeff Fisher is true. But that's all true. But somehow those guys were ready to play this team, and I anticipate a better version of the Rams team
quarterbacking the Rams
than the one we saw versus even Seattle in recent times.
I'm just asking a question. Who's quarterbacking the Rams tonight?
Me.
Who's the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams tonight? Who's going to be throwing the football, Max? Who?
No one very good, Stephen A.
Jared Goff. I just want to make sure. I'm saying the way you sound, Matt Ryan or somebody's going to be throwing the football. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know. My bad.
One of Fisher's problems was that, and this goes for the GM, not just the coach, was that it appears that they drafted the wrong guy. They traded up in the draft to draft him. Then they didn't do a very good job developing him. It seemed to me that was to create more runway for the coach, because you could always point, hey, we haven't even played the starting quarterback yet of the future. That maybe he thought would buy him another year or two. It didn't work, if in fact that was his plan. They have an inexperienced rookie quarterback now who hasn't been very good so far. All that's true. They play Seattle tough all the time.
I was not seeking an explanation. I just wanted to know who was quarterbacking, because I wasn't sure. I just wasn't sure. Now I know. It's not Matt Ryan or Drew Brees or somebody. It's Jared Goff. I just want to make sure.
It's not about who's quarterbacking the team. It's about who's going after the other team's quarterback, in this case, Aaron Donald.
We have a very special guest coming up, and meanwhile, that was Cavs head coach Ty Lue, not in the holiday spirit. We have Janoris Jenkins. He is joining the show. That is tomorrow. Sorry, we were a little thrown off there by the video.
Guys send their guys out every night, but when the Cavs do it, when LeBron does it, it's something different. So, but I understand too, because, these people are waiting to see LeBron play. They wait for this moment, this opportunity. And, when he doesn't play, the best player in the world doesn't play, it's tough on the fans, and it's close to Christmas. So a lot of it was Christmas presents and Christmas gifts. But it wasn't nothing intentional. Like I said, it was just circumstance. And sorry to the fans that didn't get a chance to see him play. But, when it is LeBron sitting out, it is a bigger deal.
I've been in this league 14 years. I shouldn't have to explain me sitting out games or not playing games. I played in every arena, including Seattle, that's no longer here, including some other places. So, it's not like it's my first year. I got 14 years. I've paid my dues and more than a lot of guys in this league. But I'm riding with my coach. What my coach wants, he gets.
There There we go. Now we got it. That was Cavs head coach Ty Lue, not in the holiday spirit after letting his big three rest and stay home instead of traveling to Memphis. Another star who rested last night was the Kings' DeMarcus Cousins, and Mike D'Antoni had this to say before the game last night. My thought on holding people out en masse? I'm really not for it. You think of the kid that travels 3 hours to see somebody and they don't show up, it's tough. So it's complicated. I know every coach is trying to do the best for his team and trying to win. He has to do what he thinks is right to win. The league may have to look at it and figure it out. Stephen A. Smith, should fans be turned off by players' attitudes?
Yes, they should. Yes, they should. There's no question about it. And listen, I want to be very, very careful and clear about what I'm about to say because I'm a fan of Tyronn Lue, a big, big fan. And I think he's an exceptional young coach, and I'm incredibly proud of him. And I think that LeBron James is the iconic sports figure in this world. There's just the way that it is. But I think that in terms of what Tyronn Lue said, it's unfortunate, and I disagreed with his position. In terms of what LeBron James said, I think this is the first time in my years of covering LeBron James where I literally could look him in the face and say, he just doesn't get it. He really, really doesn't. LeBron James has missed just 65 games in 14 years. He usually shows up to work. LeBron James missed 13 games in 2014, 2015. That's the most games he's ever missed in any season. So he's usually reliable. His record compared to the modern day era of players is exceptional. But LeBron James has never played in all 82 games of any season. Carmelo did. John Stockton did. Michael Jordan did. Gary Payton did. I think Carmelo was 16 times. Or John Stockton was. It was 16 and 10 between John Stockton or Carmelo. I forgot which one was 16 and which one was 10. I know Michael Jordan and Gary Payton both played in all 82 games 9 times in their careers. But even saying all of that, it's not about the fact that he missed a game. In today's day, particularly with the work that LeBron James put in, he's more than entitled to take the day off. My issue with LeBron James is not that he took a day off. It's the fact that you took it off in Memphis, where you are never going again this season. It's not in Cleveland that you have 41 nights a year. It's not in New York that you might visit 3 times a year. It's not in Detroit that you might visit 3 times a year or something like that. You picked a spot to miss that you'll never be in again this season. You couldn't have missed it. You couldn't have played that one and missed the game in Cleveland. Memphis and Cleveland had a back-to-back. You played in Cleveland the night before, and then you went and played the same team in Memphis the next night. How come you couldn't have missed the game in Cleveland, knowing you coming back next week, and go to Memphis, where you're never going back for the rest of this season? That's the issue. And when you talk about guys and individuals and families and all of this other stuff, and I'll let Max get into all of this stuff in terms of competitive fervor and trying to win a championship and all of this other stuff. It's not just about the championship. It's about the games. You don't get paid just to win championships. You get paid for the 82-game schedule you have to endure, and the postseason. And to skip a game in a city you're not going to be in again is the egregious part. It's not that he took the day off. LeBron James can take a day off anytime he wants to. He is right. He has earned that right. But tell that to the kid or the family in Memphis that's their one shot to see you, and you didn't show up there. That's the point.
Okay, I hope LeBron doesn't listen to you. Don't listen to him, LeBron. Look, you're talking about a business decision he should make in the middle of a season, putting the business first. And I'm saying because you have to think about the fans' interest, and that pays a salary, et cetera. And I'm saying worry about, in the middle of the season when you are a player, worry about the competition. He's making a competitive decision and not allowing business interests to interfere with that. Now, as to what about the kid in Memphis who doesn't get to see LeBron? Let's see what just happened. Hey, Stephen A., who won that game in Memphis? Memphis won. Now, If I'm a fan of Memphis, a playoff team in the West, I'm a kid and I like LeBron, but I'm a Memphis fan. I'm glad LeBron didn't play, because if he would have played, Memphis would have lost. So my team gets to win. That's good for me. Now I'll look at it from a Cleveland fan's point of view. Do I want him missing the game in Memphis, or do I want him missing the game at home? I want him missing the game in Memphis. LeBron plays for my team if I'm a Cleveland fan. And the vast majority of people who show up in Memphis are Memphis fans, and in Cleveland are Cleveland fans. So that all works out. Now, are we talking about the subsection of people who are LeBron James fans and have allegiance to him over allegiance to the fortunes of their own team? I suppose that is a group of people, and they get the short end here. You know, I mean, not everyone gets everything they want all the time. Those people get jerked. There's no doubt about it. But when you think about everyone's interests, those people, the LeBron fans who put allegiance to him over allegiance to their hometown team, those are the ones most deserving of shabby treatment. I mean, not that any fan is, but if someone has to get the business here, it should be those fans, not the LeBron fans in Cleveland or the Memphis fans in Memphis. I don't understand what the issue is here. Clearly you missed the game on the road in enemy territory. That works out for just about everybody.
Well, the thing that I find shameful about your position is that you act like you were always 40 and 43 years old. You act like you were never a kid. And don't come to me and talking to me about, oh, your interest was served because your team won, when you know good and damn well some kid came there to see LeBron James. He ain't come to see the Memphis Grizzlies. LeBron James happens to, you know good and well that there are a lot of fans of the game that are fans for those players. Let's also take into account that this is unlike football, because football, where you have the helmets and you have the shoulder pads and the equipment, unless the NFL goes about the business of marketing you and making you a conspicuous figure to represent and elevate and bring attention to their brand, chances are you don't have a personal identity and a personal relationship with the fans. The NBA is different. The fans are closer. The players aren't wearing equipment. They're wearing uniform. You identify with them personally. Not to mention the fact that, again, they're far, far more visible, and there's a personal relationship that you're able to cultivate with them. Those players use that to market themselves and make droves and droves of money. And listen, so all I'm saying to you is this. I want to make sure I'm clear. I am not saying in any way that LeBron James was wrong to take a day off, or any NBA player for that matter. What I'm saying is that where's your sensitivity when you know you're never going to be there again this season? And by the way, Max, he's also, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is one of the rare times LeBron James came across as incredibly arrogant and insensitive.
I disagree.
In that soundbite. He really did.
I totally disagree.
He really did. He really came across like that. I love LeBron, but he did.
I will go to a time when I wasn't 43, when I was like 8 or 10 years old. However,
I'm glad you remember, because it damn sure don't sound like you remember that time.
When the Knicks were a bum squad, if the Sixers were in town and Dr. J wasn't playing, hypothetically, I had tickets to the game, yeah, I'd be upset. When the Knicks were bums, I'd have been upset because I want to see Dr. J, right? And I don't get a chance to see him. That's a bad example because it's Eastern Conference, but you get the idea. Now, when the Knicks were a playoff team, if Michael Jordan, and he never missed games, unfortunately, and Michael Jordan, as we both know, in his prime, was unlike any athlete who ever lived. It was more amazing watching him than LeBron James. I'll say that definitively. And I loved watching Michael Jordan, but if he would have missed a game against my Knicks when they were a playoff team, thereby increasing the chances that my team has better playoff seeding, I would have loved that as a kid. Even if I had tickets to the game, I want my team to win.
You would have felt that way watching the game. Had you paid for the game in advance, looking forward to going and, braving traffic, braving traffic and all of that stuff, getting to the game, having spent your money to sit in a seat. Max Kellerman, I swear to you, if you say, I swear to you, I'm going to call the office right now and ask somebody to come and take my place today. If you're going to sit up there with a straight face and act like it would have had no effect on you that Michael Jordan didn't play, I'm going to walk off of this show right now. I'm going to walk off this show right now if you're going to lie like that. Go ahead.
The disappointment of not seeing Michael Jordan, it's not that you're not disappointed, is that it's outweighed by the fact that your team's going to win. Memphis won the game.
Max,
it's
a game in December.
I don't know where your guys' priorities are. I root for my teams.
It's a game in December, and the preeminent star in the world in basketball is showing up to town one night. And then he decides not to show up.
Molly, I have one question for you. Giants playing the Lions. Giants playing the Lions. Are you happy or sad if Matt Stafford doesn't play?
Oh, stop. It's not the same. It's not the same.
That I don't care, but the NBA is a different deal. You know the NBA is a star-driven league.
Pay no attention. Pay no attention to that question. Pay no attention to that idiotic question.
I'm a Yankees fan. You know, I like
because he put Matthew Stafford and LeBron James in the same sentence. Really? Really? In terms of popularity?
Guys,
you got to be serious. Stop it.
Just stop. There's another NBA situation I want to discuss. We got another player who might be taking a little rest day soon is Carmelo Anthony. The New York Post with the back page, give me a break. So after 2 straight games of terrible shooting against the Lakers and the Suns, the New York Post is reporting the Knicks are heavily considering sitting Carmelo for a game to get him rest, and the team wanted to sit him last week against the Cavaliers, but he decided he wanted to play. So, Max, we've discussed the idea of Carmelo being traded before, but right now I'm asking you, why should he be traded?
Well, every day is the best day to trade Carmelo because he's only getting older. He's not getting any younger. He should be traded because you are not going to win a championship with Carmelo Anthony, partly because his prime will not coincide with Porzingis's, and also partly because he is not capable of being the best player on a championship team. Now, I know it feels like I'm always throwing shade at Carmelo. I acknowledge he's an excellent offensive player, and his offense is so special. His scoring is so special. He's just an excellent player, period. But I do not rate him as highly as others do. And you know, I picked Syracuse to win because he was on that team back in the day. I was a fan of his. Stephen A., the best time to trade Carmelo Anthony was during Linsanity, actually, not after. When D'Antoni was the coach and he had a point guard who wasn't even great, just good and willing to buy in, and the team was buying in, they won and won and won. And everyone at the time said, well, when Carmelo comes back, he's a ball stopper, it's going to interfere. And I was arguing with people, no, Carmelo just wants to win. Don't worry about that. And you know what happened? Carmelo came back and the ball stopped and they stopped winning, just as everyone had told me would happen. So I had to adjust the way I thought about things. And the best thing would have been, at the time, once you saw what D'Antoni was capable of doing, he wasn't going to win any championships, but neither was Carmelo. D'Antoni was going to be able to create an atmosphere conducive not only to winning and exciting play, but to other players and stars wanting to play for the Knicks in the biggest market because they'd have been playing an exciting ball-sharing style. They should have traded Carmelo right then. They didn't. They blew it. Except for one season, they've been terrible since then, and the only good thing to come out of it is they got to draft Kristaps Porzingis, which is an unintended consequence of being as bad as they've been with Carmelo as the best player. Trade him now because you couldn't trade him yesterday. Don't wait till tomorrow.
Well, my problem with your synopsis and your evaluation is that you're blaming Carmelo instead of Phil Jackson, as far as I'm concerned, and that's where my problem lies. Should Carmelo Anthony be traded? Absolutely. I think he should get the hell out of New York. By the way, in the interest of full disclosure, periodically throughout the last year or so, Melo and I have argued about this on several occasions. He wants to stay. He's committed to being a New York Knick. He loves New York. He wants success to take place here under his watch. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he should stay in New York. I think he needs to get the hell out of New York as quick as he possibly can, whether it's finding a way to get to Cleveland with LeBron or finding a way to get to the Clippers with CP3. I think he should get the hell up out of here quick, fast, and in a hurry because Phil Jackson isn't doing a good job of building this team. They're not awful by any stretch of the imagination, but one could argue that's to the detriment of this franchise because being middle of the road is the worst that you can be. You're not god awful, but at the same time, you're not even anywhere in a vicinity to sniff a championship. And that's where the New York Knicks are right now. You got Derrick Rose, back spasms and all. Once again, he can't go. You got Joakim Noah, already injured, already looking old, already looking hobbled. He's in the first year of a 4-year, $72 million deal. This is what Phil gave him. By the way, you could have used some of that money to sit up there and spend it on D. Wade being in New York instead of Courtney Lee. But you didn't do that. And don't even get me started with the bench or lack thereof. This is the situation that's going on with the New York Knicks. It's got Phil and Mr. Big Chief Triangle, as Jeff Van Gundy once called them. In the midst of all of this, he's the orchestrator of all of this, making headlines for all the wrong reasons, engaging in the kind of distractions New Yorkers don't need, and Melo certainly doesn't need, not giving a damn how it comes across, not giving a damn how it looks, and clearly not giving a damn about how it impacts the New York Knicks.
But
so
Stephen
as far
A.
as I'm concerned, what do we have? Melo 32, Derrick Rose injured, Joakim Noah looking injured and old, and by the way, Courtney Lee, who's younger, but who gives a damn because he's no D Wade. That is what we have in New York.
But Courtney Lee's the right kind of player the Knicks should be looking for. Just a little bit old, and they gave him too many years. That was what the market dictated.
It didn't dictate it. They didn't have to.
You're making the Phil Jackson point. Where were the Knicks' fortunes before Phil Jackson? Under Carmelo, they had one good season. One. They didn't make the conference finals. That was it. And that predates Phil Jackson. So the constant here of the Knicks not being good is Carmelo. And it's not because he's not good. It's because he's not good enough. He's not good enough to lure other stars to New York. He's not good enough to be the best player on a championship team.
But you're making the wrong argument, because I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that he shouldn't be traded. That's the whole point.
But you're blaming Phil, but his problems predate Phil.
You're damn right it's Phil. You're damn right it's Phil.
So what about before Phil? What was the problem then?
But let me ask you this question, Mac. What about it before Phil? He's one player. One player can't do it all. Everybody ain't LeBron. And the reality is this, Max. Again, I'm going to harken back. I covered a 6-foot guard named Allen Iverson for 10 years. Forget Allen Iverson. What about Larry Brown and Billy King and Pat Croce? It's knowing what you have and building around it. You don't look at Allen. You don't.
Was Iverson playing in the same division as the Cavs with LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love?
What about when AI went to Denver?
It was much easier to get out of the East back then. The East was terrible back then.
Excuse me.
Iverson was better than Carmelo.
Whoa. You had Vince Carter and the crew in Toronto. You had Big Dog with Ray Allen and Sam Cassell in Milwaukee. Let's not ignore. Excuse me. That's not a big deal. That's not a big deal.
No, that's a backcourt. I'm not saying they had a backcourt, but Iverson was better than those guys.
What I'm saying to you is, no matter what greatness Allen Iverson put on the court offensively, the Sixers were successful because of Pat Croce, Larry Brown, and Billy King, and what they built around his talents. It's recognizing what you have and adjusting to that, as opposed to trying to get everybody else to run the damn triangle that only worked when you had Jordan or Kobe.
You're blaming Phil. My point is, no one has been able to do that for Carmelo Anthony. Okay. So at a certain point in various franchises, at a certain point, you have to start looking at Carmelo.
Carmelo Anthony went to a conference final and ran into Shaq and Kobe.
Well, I can tell you that we didn't, and I like our team, and I'm down here preparing for this game, so I really don't understand what they're talking about. I heard about it right before we got on the plane to leave, but I can assure you that we prepare each week the way you're supposed to prepare, and I like the fact that our team knows how to do that.
So that was Louisville head coach Bobby Petrino denying the team ever saw any of Wake Forest plays when they played in November. Now, these comments are contrary to information from an investigation which revealed a former Wake Forest coach and radio announcer, Tommy Elrod, leaked plays to opponents, including Louisville. Petrino's comments also contradict the school's official statement that I'm going to share with you now. Our offensive coordinator, Lonnie Galloway, received a call from Elrod during the week of the Wake Forest game and shared some information with him that week. Among the communication were a few plays that were sent and then shared with our defensive staff. None of the special plays will run during the course of the game. Our defense regularly prepares for similar formations every week and their normal game plan. Stephen A., What's your reaction to Petrino denying that the school saw Wake Forest plays?
Well, my reaction is considered a source. I mean, a legitimate argument could be made that Petrino's a liar of the highest order. And why in God's name would anybody believe anything that he has to say? I think Booger McFarland on Mike and Mike this morning said that if Bobby Petrino told you it was raining, you don't even look at your umbrella. You just go outside, get in you're in your car. What you do is you roll up the sunroof, for crying out loud. You don't even think about it because it's Bobby Petrino talking. Max Kellerman, let's go down the list. I want to give some credit to our researchers here because I just want to read specifically off of what I have here. Just the lies that we know factually.
Going back, what, about 15 years?
Actually, that's exactly correct. That's 2001. All right. You got Petrino, then the offensive coordinator with the Jacksonville Jaguars, takes the Auburn offensive coordinator job without telling Tom Coughlin, then the coach of the Jaguars before he went to the Giants, of course. Then in 2003, he's the Louisville coach. He accepts the job, but he interviews for the Auburn job, denies it until Auburn issues a statement acknowledging that they interviewed him on several occasions. Then Petrino asked for forgiveness and attributes and chalks it up to being a quote-unquote young coach. Then from 2004 to 2006, he interviewed for the Raiders job in the NFL, the Notre Dame job, and the LSU job in college football, denying it each time until get busted. Then in July 13th, 2006, he signs a 10-year deal with Louisville, all right, swearing how much he loves it and he wants to stay there. But then at the same time, he's also looking for another job. In 2007, less than 6 months after saying he was at Louisville forever, he takes the Falcons head coaching job. Then he skips out on the Falcons job after promising to stay there. Okay. I mean, just the laundry list of lies. I don't even have time to read it on national television. How many times? It's one thing to lie. It's another thing entirely to lie pathologically. But then to make matters worse, get busted each and every time and still lies again. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So now we got to do. That's right. And now we got to do. Go ahead, Max. What do you mean? What do you mean?
It might be worse because those are the times we're aware of that he lied.
Right.
You know, we think he's bad at lying because he gets caught a lot. What if he's really good at lying and those are the times he got caught, but not all the other times?
This dude is pathological. And then here's the deal. You got this dude at Wake Forest, this dude, Elrod. First of all, not only should he be banned from Wake Forest, he should be banned from the city of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is where I went to school at Winston-Salem State. We don't like liars in those parts, okay? We don't like lies anywhere, but especially in those parts. She shouldn't even be allowed in city limits. Shouldn't even be allowed in city limits. But then to sit up there and to call and try to give the plays and stuff, and then you got a coordinator that actually took the call, took some notes, shared it with the defense, etc., etc. This is all stuff that happened under Bobby Petrino. So to me, consider the source. The man lies religiously. The only thing you can trust Bobby Petrino about is his name. His name is clearly Bobby Petrino. We can confirm
I don't know.
that.
Are you sure?
Outside of that, you can't believe a damn thing the man says. It's just that simple.
Look, in the words of Ed Lover, come on, son. You know, you got the info, but you didn't use the info.
Come on now.
Even if someone totally credible made that claim, we would be dubious, right? Your reaction would be a cynical one. But this is not someone totally credible. He's a good coach. But and maybe the way the NCAA and college is set up, good coaches will tend to stretch the truth at times. But this guy has a reputation, even by those standards, that is different than others. He is known as a guy who's not trustworthy. That's his reputation, anyway, as I understand it. And in this case, even were he credible, it would be a stretch. But he isn't. I don't find him credible here. And given his reputation, less credible than even someone else might be. So at a certain point, it becomes farcical. I mean, does anyone believe him?
Well, you know what the other thing, Max, that no one's considered? The kind of aspersions this could potentially cast upon a Lamar Jackson or anybody else. And here's why I say that. Certainly we saw how great Lamar Jackson is, how special he is, and he has nothing to do with something like this. But when you talk about a coach and a particular institution willing to potentially, because they've denied it, yes, we saw it, but we didn't use anything. It wasn't a part of our playbook scheme for that particular game and all of that other stuff. How do we know this is the only time something like that has happened? How do we know this is the only time that something like that has been used to the advantage of a Bobby Petrino coach team? So it brings anything associated with him into the equation. Here's the bottom line.
You're right. You're right. But if you're a player and someone gives you information or puts you in a position to do better, succeed, have a competitive advantage, I don't know that it's incumbent upon the player to question where the information is coming from.
No, I'm not saying
that. Coach, you want me here? I'm going there.
That's not what I'm saying.
But it tarnishes somehow them in some way. and I think that if anyone's thinking that way, it's not fair to the players.
Well, it's not that you're holding the player accountable. You're saying that the coach he answers to has contaminated stuff. He's fogged, just the genuine feelings of laudables that you want to throw in the direction of that particular player.
Here's a question for you, Stephen A. Here's a question. How many coaches, what percentage of coaches do you think in college football, or were you a coach even, and someone handed you the other guy's playbook, how many turn it down? Do you turn it down?
I would turn it down.
Yeah, I don't know how many do. I don't know how many do. If they're handed the keys, how many say, no, take the keys back?
I'm not a winner if I cheated to get there. Anything that's within the rules, I'm cool. Like, for example, if I got a scout team and we're scouting you and we figure stuff out and know what you're doing based on what we've seen and things of that nature, that's fine. But if I know that I'm doing something salacious, if I know that I'm doing something underhanded, then to me, that's not winning. That's cheating. And if the coach of a college program can't have that mentality, I certainly don't want my child playing for.
Even if you don't instigate the cheating, if you're the beneficiary of it, the world is teaching people, and children included, that as long as you don't get caught, and sometimes even if you do, that you can benefit from cheating. And this is an issue that's even affected our national politics at times.
Oh, gosh.
So I mean, this is the lesson that we preach. There's a South Park episode about this. That's really good, and it involves Bill Belichick, in fact. That's not the idea that, well, if you're a winner, you don't cheat. That's not the message I think most people get through their life experience in reality.
Jerry Jones is the owner for the Dallas Cowboys. He cuts the check. And this man has come out publicly and all but said, I hope something happens to Dak Prescott so Tony Romo could get up in there. This ain't a bus driver we're talking about here. This dude is something special. How in God's name does that benefit Dak Prescott? What's inescapable and what is undeniable is the fact that Jerry Jones has made it very, very clear he don't want Dak to be that guy.
All right. Will Kane back with us. So, Will, that was earlier in the show. You were not with us at the time.
I promise you I didn't miss it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to Stephen A. and Max right there?
Well, I've had time to recover, but I was a little worked up about it. I mean, we also left out the key word, I think, which was, you said Jerry Jones, Stephen A. was trying to sabotage Dak Prescott. That's interesting. And Max says Jerry Jones has called Dak Prescott a bus driver. So let's make a couple quick points. It's amazing to me your low opinion, both of you, your low opinion of Dak Prescott. See, I have made the argument from time to time that the Cowboys should consider when they would move towards Tony Romo, that if Dak puts together a couple more games that are below average or not up to what the standards are of a Super Bowl team, they should consider Tony Romo. And the feedback I constantly get is, you don't care about this team, you're trying to undercut Dak? It's the same thing you're doing. You guys think Dak can't handle this? You think Dak's confidence is that weak? You think Dak's belief in himself is subject to the latest comments from you or Jerry Jones or me? That is a low opinion of Dak Prescott. Earlier in the show, you both said, to your credit, that Dak could handle the outside pressure. If you can walk that far, why do you take such a left turn at the last moment? Stephen A., I know the answer with you. Jerry Jones wants to sabotage Dak Prescott. Your answer for that left turn out of nowhere is simply your bias. You just can't see the Cowboys the right way. You've admitted on this show that your emotion has clouded your judgment. But Max, Max, to say, Max, you're a man who prides himself on being rational. If you could see the world in ones and zeros, that would be your preference. You want to see it all add up mathematically. But you say that Jerry Jones called Dak a bus driver?
Yeah.
You know he did not do that. You know how to read that quote, Max. He said,
how?
He said Tony Romo is not a bus driver in comparing him to other backup quarterbacks, not in comparing him to Dak.
No,
he
a bus driver is a backup
bus driver and
quarterback?
Tony's not. He's saying most backups are bus drivers and Tony is not.
Boy,
that.
you read that. I don't know what your reading comprehension scores were, Will, but boy, you got that one wrong.
Sorry.
You are. First, I thought you were just creating a straw man in me to have something to whack at, because I agree that Dak Prescott's mentally very strong, obviously, and this kind of criticism is not going to affect him the way it would affect somebody else. But to argue that Jerry Jones is referring to other backup quarterbacks as bus drivers, when bus driver could be heard as game manager, and he's clearly saying Tony Romo is better than that? Who do you think he's talking about?
This isn't a debate. I'm sorry, bud. You were wrong on this. The reading comprehension is clear. He's referring to other backups. He's saying our $100 million guy over here, $100 million guy, we're not talking about this being Kyle Orton over there. We're not talking about this being a bus driver. He's not saying the guy who's in the game, who's won him 11 games, is a bus driver. He's simply not doing that.
He's saying Tony Romo is more than a guy who doesn't make mistakes and is a game manager. Bus driver might as well be read as game manager, which is what Dak Prescott's been accused of being, even though he's more. First of all, game manager is not a dirty word. And secondly, Dak Prescott's clearly shown to be much more than that. When he says that, he is elevating Romo at the expense of Dak.
Stephen A.
Well, I was actually enjoying the back and forth banter between the two guys. And I mean, in the case of Will, I find it not just ironic, but absolutely hysterical that he would accuse me of being biased when it comes to the Cowboys, as if he's not. I love how he just eradicates and omits himself from that equation. Like, oh, I'm not objective, but he is. He's just a paragon of virtue in that regard. Stop your nonsense. You know better. You have no objectivity when it comes to your Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, by the way, especially when it comes to Tony Romo, because the one thing that easily a little child could predict when it comes to Will Cain is that it is important for him to be right. And how in God's name could you possibly be right if you ignored what Jerry Jones is trying to do with Tony Romo? You probably are the only person on the planet that wants Tony Romo in the lineup more than Jerry Jones. So who are you to sit up there and to pick apart my statement, which are very obvious, by the way. Jerry Jones has a, hold on, zip it, listen. Jerry Jones is the owner for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott has won 11 straight. The only 2 losses has been to the New York Giants. They are 11-2, clearly in position to win the NFC East, clearly in a position to be the #1 seed in the entire NFC. And yet Jerry Jones is talking about what a great moment it would be if Tony Romo found his way back into that lineup. What do you call that, Will?
What do you call it? Honesty. That's what I call it. Honesty.
Honesty in terms of his feelings?
Yeah.
In terms of his feelings and his wishes?
My turn.
And his wishes?
My turn. Let me tell you this. You're right. I don't lie to anybody. I'm not here playing a role. I'm not acting. I have bias on the Cowboys. It is true. As do you. I have a positive bias towards the Cowboys. You have a negative
one.
You have a negative one. You know the difference between you and me?
Don't sit there and leave it on me. That's all I said. Don't forget yourself.
Okay, but the difference between us, while we both have our bias, is that I've been right and you've been wrong.
How?
I have sat here with you week after week, except for the weeks when you couldn't face the competition with me, telling you the Cowboys were going to win, starting with the Washington Redskins in week 2, all the way through now. You have been wrong.
No.
Again,
Will,
and again,
and again. Time out, Will.
You were saying Romo was going to get his job back.
On tape.
I'm not done with that, Max. It's not over.
Hold it, Will. You sounded like that dude from Saturday Night Live that played Tim Kaine. Relax. Chill out. Here's the deal, okay? I am on the record saying that the Dallas Cowboys before the season began would win the NFC East. That's number one. Number two, I said ain't no way in hell they're winning the Super Bowl. Come to me in February and let's see if I'm wrong. Number three, what I said is this. Why are you rooting for Tony Romo? Me personally, if Tony Romo is back in the lineup, it will ensure that Jerry Jones has messed it up and the Dallas Cowboys are going down. So I won't mind. You want Tony Romo regardless of what Dak Prescott does, but you call yourself a Cowboys fan when in fact you're really rooting for Tony Romo? How do you explain that?
And Will,
Max.
to sit there and say that you've been right and Stephen A's been wrong about the Cowboys all year. Yeah, this is the year that the Cowboys have so far gone 11-2.
Yeah.
The Cowboys fan is going to be right a lot that year. I mean, you know,
it's been a good year,
that's just
Max.
the way it goes.
Yeah, it's been a good year.
Yes, it has if you're a Cowboys fan so
Here,
far.
final points on this. The Jerry Jones and how do I explain myself to you, Stephen A. Jerry Jones is being honest. He's not painting it or spinning it or being a politician. He's acknowledging that he has an emotional connection to Tony Romo. And the story would play out well. The story would play out well that the franchise quarterback would win the Super Bowl. But he doesn't want to sabotage Dak. Neither do I. I think the Cowboys can win a Super Bowl with either. I think Tony increases the odds. I'm not alone, by the way. Dominique Foxworth, Bomani Jones, other people have acknowledged this as well. I'm not alone here.
Would Dak Prescott be anything less than
sabotage
if Tony Romo ends up in the lineup, even if he doesn't get injured, but Tony Romo still found his way up in the lineup? Would that not be sabotage?
You like some good trash talk? So do I. Earlier this month, UFC superstar Conor McGregor obtained a boxing license in California, something that did not amuse Floyd Mayweather, who Floyd is hoping to fight in the boxing ring. Floyd had this to say to Fight Hype. I don't fight in California. What did he get a license in California for? I'm going to tell you like this. He's blowing smoke up everybody's bleep. He don't really want to fight because I went to his boss. He don't really want to fight. He's just doing that to keep his name alive. You know what I'm saying? To stay relevant. He don't really want to fight. He's doing that, building his followers, but he is smart. Stephen A. Smith, what do you make of Floyd's latest comments on Conor?
Well, what it says to me is that Floyd is looking to fight somebody and is looking to get paid because he has to know enough about Conor McGregor to know that the second Conor McGregor gets wind of his comments, Conor McGregor is going to have something to say. If there is one person in this world that can talk more smack than Floyd Money Mayweather, it would happen to be Conor McGregor. There's no question about that. I also saw where Floyd talked about if he saw him, he'd slap him. Let's be clear. Floyd is alluding to what he would do inside the boxing ring. Outside the boxing ring or in an octagon, I humbly say to you, Floyd wants no part of Conor McGregor. You don't want none of that because that's not just boxing. Boxing, Floyd would pick him apart. He would eat him alive. He would embarrass him. He would hurt him because it's just hand-to-hand combat with the gloves. In the streets or in the octagon, you get to use everything. Legs, elbows, feet, etc. He ain't on Conor's on the level in that regard. So I just think he needs to pump the brakes there. But in the end, he's bringing attention to it by talking about it. Floyd is a moneymaker. He understands that. And that's why he said what he said.
Yeah, we're on the same page about this one. Look, in a boxing match, it's no contest. That's easy work, as Floyd would say. In a fight, which is when you say the octagon or the street, what you just really mean is a fight. In a fight, Floyd's got no wins and no chance against Conor McGregor. So when he says he's going to slap him, he has to be talking about inside a ring. Now let's talk about inside a ring and what Floyd is actually doing here. He said Conor McGregor's smart. He's getting his followers up. Yeah, Conor McGregor is smart. He understands self-promotion. And Floyd Mayweather is smart. And what Floyd is doing here is really pumping up Conor McGregor. He is helping to raise McGregor's profile and stoke the flames of for people who want to see this confrontation, because Floyd knows it's the easiest possible way for him to make $100 million plus is to take a guy who has no business in the ring with him, and it would surely take place in the ring and not the octagon, and get $100 million plus for beating him as he pleases. So Floyd here is helping to raise the profile of McGregor, whose profile is already very high, and the potential of a fight. Floyd knows just what he's doing, as Conor McGregor does. They're both very smart.
It's a potential exhibition. Everybody keeps saying that it's not going to happen. Let me tell you something. if enough people clamor for something and it's deduced that you're definitely going to make major money off of this, then it will happen, because that's what this world cares about in every industry. That's just the way that it goes. Very few people on the planet know that better than Floyd Money Mayweather, and Conor McGregor has clearly become a very fast learner. And as somebody who was at ringside for Conor McGregor's fight, last month at Madison Square Garden, I got to confess, it was electrifying, man, to watch this dude walk into a ring, to watch the reaction that he generates. If you're talking about him transferring that enthusiasm, that energy, that fervor to a fan base, along with Floyd Money Mayweather, as much of a joke as it may be in the eyes of many,
By the way,
a fight
it was
that
incredible.
could happen.
Going forward, people are going to have to figure out a way. There will be more of these hybrid potential matchups between boxers and MMA fighters, and always in the ring, the boxer's going to whoop them, and always in the octagon, the MMA fighter's going to whoop the boxer. I think people need to start thinking about a way to put them in with something that kind of splits the difference, so you actually don't know who is going to win.
You are so disrespectful.
He is going to fall off a cliff.
Shut the hell up.
That's not even close to my best.
They're wrong. And I don't give a damn that they agree with me or not.
You know what it is. Time now for Stephen A. Smith's final word of the day. This is Final Take. Stephen A., take us home.
Thank you, Molly. Obviously, we learned the news that Michael Floyd Jr., wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, was cut by the team following Monday's arrest on a DUI charge, along with disobeying a police officer. There are a lot of folks out there that's going to feel sorry for this man. He was the first-round pick, 13th overall in 2012. He's only had 1,000-yard season in his 5 years in the NFL. By all accounts, the Carson Palmers, the Honey Badger, and others, they swear that he's an incredibly good guy, affable, fun to be around and get along with and what have you. But the Arizona Cardinals let him go anyway. What I would caution everybody, or at least encourage everybody to do instead of lamenting his departure, is to pay attention to what president of the team, Michael Bidwell, took the time to say. He called it a statement. And that is what we should be paying attention to right now. And here is why. Michael Floyd is not an elite receiver, even though he's had great moments. He was an average player, maybe above average. The Arizona Cardinals clearly don't care. What they care about is your behavior. You got Bruce Arians, who was on the record when you had other players that were involved with accusations of domestic violence and beyond. He talked about how that would be tolerated. Clearly, when you get in trouble with DUI and you're a relatively average player who's not achieving as much as you would like, you're considered expendable. But more importantly than that, the Arizona Cardinals are saying, to hell with the NFL, the commissioner's exempt list and all of this other stuff. This is our franchise, and we're going to look at you, and we're going to hold you accountable, not just for being the player and the talent that you're supposed to be, but for being the responsible professional and human being that you're supposed to be. We're not letting the league make that call. We're not letting the commissioner make that call. We will do it ourselves. We will take accountability for it. And that's exactly what we should all want from any team in the NFL. Not someone who piggybacks on the backs of the league, but somebody who takes it upon themselves to establish a standard and be unapologetic for it. I feel bad for Michael Floyd, but I applaud the Arizona Cardinals for making the statement themselves instead of leaving it to somebody else.
Stephen A., thank you. In case you missed any of our final takes, they always live online, Facebook and Twitter. Check them out there. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see you all tomorrow. Janoris Jenkins will be here. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Catch First Take weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on Monday through Friday. Have a great day.
Western Michigan looks to complete the undefeated season. Standing in their way, 8th-ranked Wisconsin. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Monday, January 2nd at 1 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.